Across Nigeria, conversations are growing louder about the role of young people in shaping the country's democratic journey. Now, as Nigeria looks ahead to the 2027 general elections, one of the most pressing issues is how to get young people more involved in the democratic process. With over 70% of the population under the age of 35, the youth hold the power to redefine the country's political future, but only if they step up to register and vote. Now, the challenge is clear: turning these numbers into influence. That's what the issue is.
The question is no longer whether young Nigerians should participate, but how their involvement can transform the nation's future. And GoNigeria, convened by the founder of IBTC, Mr. Atedo Peterside, Commander of the Order of the Niger, is helping steer young Nigerians into directions that ensure they take part in the critical assignment of participating in the voters' registration exercise. Joining us this morning from London for this important conversation on youth participation is the founder of Stanbic IBTC and president and founder, ANAP Foundation, Mr. Atedo Peterside. A warm welcome to you, sir, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on your station.
I mean, the first and most important question is, why did you decide to embark on this advocacy, and why is it important to you?
Okay, let me just explain that GoNigeria was founded 4 years ago. So we actually existed before the last general election. And you asked me a question, why did I decide to do this? It's one of the projects of my foundation, ANAP Foundation. I think the genesis, or should I say, it goes all the way back to NSAS, when I think many Nigerian youths became politically active. And the idea was, look, instead of channeling your energy only at protests, why don't you also, I say also, not instead of, why don't you also channel your energy towards mobilizing many young people? You are the majority. Even the numbers given by your colleague on this station this morning about the demography, you are the majority. If you guys get together, register, and you vote, in many elections, forget about just presidency, House of Assembly, House of Rep, Senate, the candidate that gets the support of the bulk of you wins. So why don't you take back your country? Focus on taking back your country. And then you can also protest side by side. What you cannot do is to protest and then stay out of the processes to decide who governs you. So that was where it came from. And thereafter, what I did was to assemble a number of advocates. Everything we're doing for Nigeria, I believe in federal character. Today, we have 24 advocates in GoNigeria, 4 from each geopolitical zone. These are people that are volunteering their time and their energy to help to mobilize Nigerians to register to vote. And that's the priority right now, because the deadline for registration is Sunday, July 26th, which is just over 2 weeks from today.
Right. So why do you think voter apathy persists among young Nigerians despite their numbers?
You know, it's like asking a question, why is somebody depressed? One thing is sure, if perhaps, it's ironic, but if things were going very well, many people would have had more optimism, and then they might have come out to take part in their civic duty. It's very tempting in life when you are getting the wrong end of the stick to feel hopeless and give up and say, there's nothing I can do, everything has been rigged, everything has been decided. Some people, some old people, ancient people have grabbed the country, the country by the throat. Whatever I do or say has no impact. But that's a dangerous mindset, because it leads to a self-fulfilling prophecy. The people who you say have hijacked the country or in control of the country, the thing they fear most is a massive youth turnout at any election. You must always learn in life to give your opponent what he does not want. What they actually want is a very low turnout, so that even if you are buying votes, you only have to buy a few votes and you've won. So it's difficult to get young people to realize that they have the potential. The country is theirs. The future is theirs. And this country is not going to change until they decide to carry out their civic duty and take the bull by the horn and try and begin to engage in deciding who gets to govern them. And it can even be at the level of your state house of assembly, house of rep, whatever level, including presidency, of course.
There was a certain awareness that we saw in the 2023 election. Young people, for the first time in a long time, were more than ever very interested in politics, in being a part of the elections. From your organization's perspective, from the data you've been able to collate, how would you say the current reality is and projection for 2027, which is just in a few months? So in terms of registration to actual turning out on the day proportion, from what we see, if we continue on this trajectory, is it going to be better than what we saw in 2023 or worse?
Okay, let's not jump ahead of the game. I deliberately drew attention to July 26th. Let's go step at a time. I can always come back to discuss what happens after July 26th. But for now, July 26th is the deadline by which, if you do not pick up your smartphone and put in your name on cvr.inecnigeria.org, then you're out of the game completely. You can't even vote. You can't change your mind later. So let's focus on what we have to do to get all the people who didn't register. Of course, the majority are the young ones, but many of them are only 18 years old. So 4 years ago, they were 14. So those who were 14, 15, 16, 17, and were out of the elections last time, we want to bring them in. And to be fair, many have been responding, but I don't think Nigeria is doing enough to mobilize them, explain to them why it's important that you've turned of age, you are 18, this is your duty, this is your right, go and claim your birthright. I don't think Nigeria is doing enough about that. It's also part of INEC's job, by the way, and INEC will claim they're doing it. But guess what? Even when I first spoke to your TV station, I don't think anybody was aware at the time of the deadline, which then was July 14th. Even this new deadline of July 26th, you almost have to beg people to find out or to know when is the deadline. So some young people are in danger of waking up on July 27th, going to go and try and register, and they're told it's too late. So the concern is to spread this message and say you've got 2 weeks to come out and register. When you register, then you keep your options open. It's about keeping your options open. Register first. Then you can decide whether you want to vote on election day or who you will vote for or who you will not vote. Look, everywhere in the world, we all know, it's candidates that mobilize people, that create excitement. So if candidates create excitement in the campaign period, it will help to increase turnout. If candidates are dull and are not, the type that inspire confidence, turnout will be lower. But we can talk about turnout and other things later. I prefer to focus on what needs to be done between now and Sunday, 26 July.
Now, talking about doing what should be done between now and Sunday, I mean, we have a generation of Nigerians that will be turning 18. These are digital natives. They were born in the advent of the internet, went to primary school with internet, and they're very familiar with technology, and they are more in tune with convenience. What role should INEC play in making registration more accessible to first-time voters? Because when you tell people they have to physically go to a local government and queue, especially Gen Zs and others, they feel, it's quite an inconvenience. Why should I bother myself? So what feedback would you give INEC in terms of making it more accessible?
Yeah, but let's be fair, because I'm not here to just find fault with INEC. INEC has done a major thing. I said all you need to register is take your own smartphone by yourself, stay in your bedroom at 2 a.m., and you can register on your phone. That is the deadline for July 26th. It's about you picking up a smartphone or internet, or go to a friend that has a phone, and you log in cvr.inecnigeria.org, and you can put in your name, your details, and everything, and at least you've met the deadline. Let's not confuse the first action you have to take, which is to go to the website. Indeed, it is the educated people you're talking about. You said people who are tech savvy and so on, who actually will find it easiest, because you can do it on your smartphone in your house. The first step The first step is to put in your name and your details for INEC before July 26th, which you can do in your bedroom. The second step after that, when you've done that, you will then choose a center for some time later to go to INEC to capture the biometrics. That is the second step. But guess what? As soon as you've inputted, you input all your details by 26 July, you've met the deadline. So the next step is the one that involves a physical move to a place where they will capture your biometrics. And then even then, I mean, INEC claims now that unlike in the past when after your biometrics and they issue your card, you had to physically collect your card, which became torturous for many people because there were stories about even INEC officials burying voters' cards and all kinds of nonsense that shouldn't happen. This time, they claim you should be able to download your PVC yourself, which some of us have been asking for all this time. Why make this simple thing so difficult? Almost every aspect of this process you should be able to do from your own house, except the biometrics. That's the only thing that should warrant you going to look for anybody in INEC. So again, let me just emphasize, what we are canvassing for now is people should pick up a smart device or borrow from a friend, register, put in their name, all their details, your age, date of everything before 26 July. Then you get an appointment for biometrics to go and which will come later. But if you miss the first step and you miss the deadline, then it's too late.
Okay, I mean, the countdown is on. You are pushing that the youth starts now, just like you've mentioned, and in all the course of our conversation. But the youths, do you think that the political parties are also doing enough to galvanize this movement? Because if GoNigeria is doing what it has to do, whatever the political parties, in terms of their names, whoever they are, also doing what they have to do, the country might see a turnaround in terms of the numbers. But do you think GoNigeria alone, or do you think rather, do you think the political parties are also doing enough to move the youths to go ahead and register?
Look, it's not when you talk about political parties, all politics is local. So it varies with where you are in Nigeria and what efforts people are making. Let's be very careful. Somebody's running for House of Assembly in Lagos or in Borno State. So what is his priority? To get everybody and anybody that he knows or he can access to register in his LGA in Borno. Many of them are doing that because they want votes for themselves. So it's a self-interest issue. And let me also tell you something about the educated youth versus the so-called illiterate youth. The illiterate youth in Nigeria are better at coming out to register and carry out their civic duty. Perhaps because they believe that getting the PVC is a right to collecting 15,000. I know it sounds like I'm being unfair, but for some of them, they know that if you get that PVC, politicians will come and try and buy your votes. So they get it. The problem is the educated youth or those who are tech savvy and all, who then sometimes get trapped in this game of thinking, well, I know so much, I'm educated, and I know that in reality in Nigeria, even if I get my PVC, even if I get to vote, somehow they'll manipulate the outcome, they will rig it, so I won't bother. That's the one that leads to this self-fulfilling prophecy. By keeping yourself out of the elections, you have given up your right to decide who gets to govern you. So I repeat, it's a problem of the educated youth. It's not a problem of the illiterate youth. Go to your village and check. Almost all the illiterate youth are registered. Because they know, they have even been told, if you don't register, when it's time to share money, you won't get your own share, and all kinds of negative things like that. It's the educated graduate who believes, I'm too sophisticated to sell my votes to any idiot for 15,000 naira anyway, so I'm not going to bother. But he should take the other cue, which is that he should be deciding whom he will vote for in every election, including House of Assembly, House of Rep. And please, before people start getting too negative about House of Rep elections, let me tell you the story of my own polling unit in Victoria Island. The last election, go and check. The candidate that won the House of Rep in Victoria Island was from Labour Party. Nobody knew him. He beat PDP, he beat APC. People just went in there and voted against APC and PDP. And so he won. Some young guy that nobody knew.
Right. I hear when you speak to the power of the knowledge of the influence that owning and holding your PVC is, and you speak about, unfortunately, those who have the negative, they see the picture, the uneducated young people who see the picture of what this can be. Now, as we are canvassing and we're advocating for young people around the country to ensure that they register on or before the 26th of July 2026, how do we then move from just canvassing about registration to sustained voter education?
Yeah, I think that voter education is a collective effort. And I must also commend New Central, because even having this discussion with me, you're taking part in the process. That's part of the collective effort. If media houses, they have no interest, they don't want to discuss, they don't care if anybody mobilizes voters or not. But I think the reason why we put the primary focus on the very young ones is that parents should be responsible for the upbringing of the younger ones. Adults in the society should be responsible for making sure that the younger ones get the right exposure. And we are collectively responsible. When I say we, I think everybody on this program is definitely above 21. So there's a bunch of Nigerian kids who were 14 years, 15, 16, 17 last time around. It is our responsibility in every country for us to tell them that now you're of age, you're 18, you're entitled to the following. Come and claim your birthright, carry out your civic duty. We are the ones responsible for bringing them up. We are the ones responsible for the messaging, and we can make the messaging positive in a way that encourages them to come out. And guess what? I've said it before, and I'm sure you can check. In terms of demography, if the voters who are 18, 19, 20, 21, that is new first-time voters alone, in many LGAs, if those people be aged between 18 and 22, let's say, alone, decide to vote for one candidate, that candidate has won. Because they're the majority. He has won immediately, like happened in Victoria Island. So really, it is about their wish and who they want. And the older politicians are scared of that. The last thing they want is to come out and mobilize these young people. You know what young people do everywhere in the world? They vote against the establishments. That's the general trend.
Okay. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, I think my final question to you would be, the youths tend to like certain things. I mean, from entertainment to tech, what drives them? And what are people doing, people like your humble self doing, to ensure that they can use what the youths like to drive them to engage in registration? But that would be after we come back from this break. Let's go on a quick break. Stay with us. Our conversation still is looking at youth's participation ahead of 2027. We have the convener of GoNigeria who joins us, Mr. Atedo Peterside, CON. Like I said before we went on a break, the youths tend to love entertainment, they love music, they love movies. In other countries, we've seen how these things that they love have been used to galvanize or push them as a movement. What is GoNigeria doing to engage the youth with what they love to ensure that they do this before the deadline?
Your first thing's correction. The website you called was the wrong website. There's no such website.
Oh,
it's
my apology. CVR.
It's cvr.inecnigeria.org. .org. There's no .com. With INEC. Yeah, .org. cvr.inecnigeria.org. I would even love it if at the end of this program you put up that website so people go to the right place.
Don't worry about that. We'll leave that to us. We'll make more announcements on that.
Yes, okay. Yeah, please help us between now and July 26th and put it out every day.
We'll make it a daily announcement.
Thank you. But to answer your question, one thing I learned about young people, and I have children, I have grandchildren, is that you have to be very careful that you don't come out as if you're patronizing, especially the educated ones. I can give you an example. Of course, first of all, let me make it very clear. We have something that we call GoNigeria ambassadors, which are usually celebrities and others who want to sign on to this project, and they join in being influencers, and they put out material, usually social media and all. There have been concerts galore, where there are, but I said, let's be very careful. It's not every musician that can be politically active. Even overseas, if you look at, there are two different types of musicians. Some are politically active, some are not. And it's a big mistake for people, they say different strokes for different folks. There's nothing worse than somebody who is not politically aware, trying to drive trying to drive political consciousness. I think you've got to be that type of musician. I think recently, and I hate to mention names, but then you caused it, so I'll answer questions truthfully. Recently, I've heard Davido make comments that were political, and people went after him and so on. It looks as if he has chosen that path, that I don't care whether you abuse me or not. I'm a musician, I'm an influencer. If something is wrong in my country, I will speak out. That is a serious choice by any artist. There are some other artists that their life is not about that. Their life is about dancing, making merry, drinking, alcohol, all sorts of things. Stay in your lane is better than going across to go and make a fool of yourself. Because the young people are smart. If you're talking nonsense, they will say so immediately. And incidentally, Davido was talking sense. But I don't want to name other musicians who tried this same thing. I was at the show once. Everything was going fine. One of the popular artists, I think in the last election cycle, instead of going on to the next song, he started talking about politics, and he was talking arrant nonsense. The manager jumped up, went to him, and was almost screaming at him in front of us to abandon that nonsense and stick to the script. There's no excuse for talking nonsense. And please don't think that these things are that easy. It's very easy to cross over when you're making comments on things that you've not researched and you're talking about. When Davido was talking, he had his facts. He was talking sense. You can criticize his views, but you cannot accuse him of talking nonsense. If anything, I would say he was telling the truth.
Okay.
So he said he knew what the truth was. So what I'm telling you is that we have this program where we call them GoNigeria ambassadors. Any musician, any actor, we've had many from Nollywood. You can sign up to this, use your position and influence to communicate with the youth. But I'll end by saying one very important thing. Our strategy has been using, it's like train the trainer. It is the young people that we have sensitized and mobilized who are better at convincing other young people. So we're using young people to convince young people. People like me are not the ones to convince all the youth in Nigeria. Our job is to train some young people and then use them to amplify the messaging. They will do it better any day.
I completely agree with you in terms of public figures, entertainers, and the influence that they wield in being able to speak on political matters. We've seen, for example, Falz the Bad Guy, who's just dropped a song, Naji, that's talking about political consciousness and how very easily we can be distracted by trends as opposed to jumping on current conversations that impact us as a nation. So my final question to you would be, from your perspective, what will success look like for you in terms of the percentage of young people that will register and participate in the 2027 elections?
I think success for me, but by the way, we'll get the numbers. INEC brings out the data in terms of age groups that registered. So it is when we look at the people who registered newly and figure out what percentage of them were aged between 18 and 22. If there was a large turnout in that age bracket, for me, that's success. But please, I would answer your question by pointing out, I said GoNigeria has 24 advocates. One of them, and possibly the youngest, is Falz, the musician. So it's not just people in my age bracket. We have 24 people from different walks of life. And as you know, Falz is politically active. It's something that he has chosen. If he talks to you on this program, you will know that he has given thought to what he's saying, that he knows what he's talking about. Those are the kind of musicians that can help in this serious messaging, not the frivolous one. You have to be somebody who is deep, and Falz is deep.
He is, completely.
Now, Mr. Peterside, before we wrap up this conversation, I want you to address those Nigerian youths that are disillusioned with the system and have lost hope and think, the entire process is rigged, and on why it's important to register and be a part of this. You can speak directly to them and how it does affect their lives and future.
Okay, I will try. If you're 18 years old now, this is your first opportunity. Please don't listen to all those elderly people who have been burnt before. that you're coming of age for the first time. Your country has allowed you that you can now vote because you are 18. 4 years ago, you had no say in the matter. You were only 14. Now, let me tell you something. If you were 14 last time, 15 last time, 16, 17 last time, if those 4 age groups alone get together in your local government, in your House of Assembly election, and you all vote for one person, the chances are that he has won that election immediately because you're the majority. So forget about elderly people coming to confuse you and deceive you, telling you things like votes don't count. If votes don't count, why are they buying the votes? So you go out there, do what you have to do. In some countries, you can vote at age 16. In Nigeria, it's age 18. In some countries, it's 21. At 18 years old, 19, 20, 21, this is your election. So grab the bull by the horn and help to determine your country's future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, sir. I don't know if Joe has any questions.
I think it's only fair that if we have you join us here to speak about the youths, we've used a long number of minutes, as it were, to discuss that, and that's very interesting. I was also mentioned that in as much as INEC had issues on their website, the back and forth, people not being able to register, we believe that has been rectified. But we cannot let you go without hearing your own or your 2 cents about the current situation of things in the country. I mean, you're a you always talk tough. You never hold back. We know you to do that. I'm not going to pick a particular one, but of course, the issues rising from the Senate to the hashtag Bajagate, to the current administration, the budget, and so on. Can you just give a potpourri of every single thing that you think is going on in the country? Just to hear from you.
Sorry, first of all, let me explain why I'm laughing, because viewers would have seen me laughing. I think for the last half an hour, every other question, you guys claimed was the last question. And then you ask another.
We've enjoyed having a conversation with you.
Notice the trend. Everything is the last question. But this is the World Cup season. So let me use an analogy from the World Cup, because most Nigerians understand soccer. If you understand soccer, there are countries like Tunisia sacked their coach during the World Cup. They were the African countries that didn't make it to the knockout stages. They were angry. They sacked him even before they finished the group matches. So why? Because they felt the football team has failed them. If you are a French national, are you really sad about your football team? No. You're probably feeling very good, feeling very happy. Do you need to shout at the French FA or shout at anybody about to reorganize football in France? Probably no, because you probably feel everything is going fine and you might be on course to win the World Cup. I'm making a serious point here, which is that if you believe everything is going fine in your country, like the French feel today about football, then you can relax. Then you can say, let me just go and sleep. I don't have to take part. It is when you believe something is wrong in your country that you have to get off your backside and do what you need to do to bring about change. So the reason why some of us are talking is for the very reasons you mentioned. You listed so many things that are wrong in the country. You're calling all kinds of scandals and disgraceful things that happened in your country. That is the more reason why we've got to get up, according to the young ones to call the majority, and decide who gets to rule them in future, so that we stop hearing all this nonsense. In any case, let me take a very important issue. Where is Nigeria failing with the economy? You mentioned the economy. Where we are failing the most, it's not inflation, which is coming down slowly. It's not the exchange rate, which is largely stable. It is the large numbers of Nigerians, millions of Nigerians, that we're throwing into poverty every month. We are the poverty capital of the world. We have the largest number of poor people in any single country in the world. We've overtaken China. We've overtaken India. Sorry, years ago, they had many poor people. Guess what? They have lifted the people out of poverty. We are throwing Nigerians into poverty. And that is why it's important who governs us, what their priorities are. We want people who, when they're in office, their priorities are how to lift Nigerians out of poverty. Not how to make the rich get richer or to make the very rich even more wealthy. And the poor ones are in the majority, the 130 million of you who are out there and poor and impoverished. We want governments and governments that make it their priority to lift people out of poverty, put out safety nets and do whatever is required to rescue millions of Nigerians.
Okay, all right. Looking at poverty as a big challenge, but I know a lot of persons are looking forward to see what will come out of Nigeria, the common situation of things that we're faced with, especially with the poverty, like you rightly mentioned. But to crown it all up, I don't know if my colleagues have one more question.
Yes, I want to follow up from what you said about...
Just to explain that...
We're getting instructions.
I know it's saying final question,
giving us a little
but
more
they just told us to give you more time.
Yes,
I mean,
it's not every day we get to speak to someone like you, so please accommodate us. I'm glad you mentioned the Chinese example, more than 1 billion people. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. It's been done before, and we can follow different models across the world. Vietnam too has removed quite a number of people, millions, from poverty. You're one who has cut his teeth in the private sector, and you understand what it is to have a thriving and developing economy that is all-inclusive. The current administration seems to be obsessed with a $1 trillion economy by 2030. Why is that important, and why are we not focused on developing the human beings in Nigeria? Why is that not more of a priority in terms of the number of out-of-school kids we have, removing them, in terms of reducing the amount of Nigerians that are multidimensionally poor? Or if we get to that 1 trillion economy, all these things will automatically follow. Is that how it works?
No, it doesn't work that way. You see, I'm an economist by training. You can have economic growth without poverty reduction. It's a myth to think that economic growth necessarily lifts everybody up. That only happens if the growth is inclusive and is helping to lift people out of poverty. You can actually have a situation, and we have it in Nigeria, where what you achieve in largely is the rich or the very rich are getting a lot wealthier. If that happens, GDP will grow. That's why we measure figures on poverty. So you can have the rich people getting richer because the economy is growing for them, and have many average people getting poorer because the economy is not doing anything for them. Indeed, sometimes, and I don't want to turn this to a class war, sometimes the reason why the poor are getting poorer is because the very rich are overcharging them for basic goods and services, abusing monopoly power and things like that. That is why in many countries you have regulators and people like that worrying about monopoly pricing and things. So it's not as if I'm saying that the rich are the ones making the poor get poorer. No, it is the responsibility of government to ensure that in every policy and everything you are doing, you do not allow practices that make the poor poorer to continue. Sometimes you get what you wished for. If all you ever do in government is sit around together, dishing out big contracts to rich people and getting richer and talking about how we are going to attain 1 trillion, what about talking about the things that really matter? The number of out-of-school children. We have the largest number in the world. What are we doing about that? How about the number of 130 million people that you've agreed are poor in Nigeria? What are we doing about that? Is that the priority? Is that what is being discussed every day? Or are we just talking about increasing the GDP, whereby sometimes the very rich get richer? So I think and that's why we have politics as well. It's an opportunity for people to address these issues and decide what the priorities are and what they should be. I believe as a Nigerian today, as an economist, lifting Nigerians out of poverty should be the #1 priority.
Right, and many will agree with you, because that's one of the major complaints we hear about the quality of life that Nigerians are living. Another issue that has led to the voter apathy we see, or maybe the nonchalant attitude that some people have displayed when it comes to registration for elections, or registering rather for their PVCs, is a breach of trust between the government and the governed. And I want you to speak on how we can, remedy that breach of trust. And I'll speak to a particular instance that further highlights that. But we need to go on a very short break. When we come back, I'll expand on that further. All right. Okay. It would seem that we can probably go ahead with that before.
Okay.
Okay, right. Let me just speak to it whilst we're sorting that break. So the breach of trust is the major concern that we hear, and we highlight that often on this show. One of the scenarios, for example, would be the president having appointed a man who is in the eye of the storm at the moment, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila. No, he is not guilty. We're not saying he is. There is a presumption of innocence. Section 36, subsection 5 of the Constitution provides for that. However, it's thrown a negative spotlight on the presidency for several reasons. It's been a line item in the budget. How did he get into the budget? How did this agency exist? Regardless of what the explanation is, it's not a good look for the current administration. Then we hear that the president appoints the implementation of State Police Committee, and Femi Gbajabiamila is chairing that committee. How does this look to the average Nigerian, to the young person who is getting involved and interested in politics? Then please speak to that and a broader perspective of how we can breach that breach of trust between the citizens and the government.
Yes, thank you for the question. You know, instead of getting drawn into what I would consider to be targeted, specifics, I would like to answer your question from a broader perspective, which is that even GoNigeria, if you look at our communication, we identified, you said breach of trust. We identified 4 pillars. Is those 4 pillars are the fundamental things in a society that make people not trust in the whole system and believe that they will get good governance. The 4 pillars are what? We need electoral reform, even more of it. We need judicial reform. We're talking about insecurity. Insecurity threatens free and fair elections. If you can't even come out safely and cast a vote without being scared for your life, then already, I mean, there's a biased outcome. 4, freedom of speech. If people cannot come out and campaign and speak freely without being arrested for saying one thing or the other. So I'm drawing attention to 4 major pillars. I repeat: electoral reform, judicial reform, insecurity, freedom of speech. You are drawing attention to specific things that have gone wrong. I put it to you that every other month, something small will go wrong. And those 2 things go wrong partly because we don't have some of these 4 pillars in place. Because if we had a proper judiciary, fewer things will go wrong. So I don't want to get lost in in today's scandal. There'll be a different scandal tomorrow. You can write it down. I'm looking at the bigger picture. And I want the youth, the young people, to focus on that bigger picture, not to be distracted by today's scandal, because there's another one tomorrow and the day after. That is the story of Nigeria for now. Is the quality of our governance overall is not good enough. I go back to the soccer analogy. The French can say their soccer is good enough. Tunisia will say it's not good enough. The quality of our governance today is not good enough. And I'm talking local government, I'm talking state government, I'm talking federal government. So that's the priority. Examples of things that are going wrong are just too many.
Right.
That's why if you notice, yeah.
And I mean, it becomes a distraction at some point. It's almost like a gossip. Or he says this, he says this. We should focus on building institutions and not strong individuals, like former President Barack Obama said. Thank you so much, Mr. Atedo Peterside.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And thanks for allowing us to go on hydration break and also, extra time.
And we're coming back to you after the 26th of July.
All the time. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. My own last word is to thank the 4 of you for giving your time to talk to me. And I would just say that I know I'm a frustrating person to interview, because you ask me a question about one thing and I talk about what I want to talk about, because I think I'm old enough to decide what I want to talk about. So I'm not saying I will never address those issues. I will address them after 26th of July.
All right.
Thank you.
We look forward to having you then. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.